Hi. Well, it is so exciting to see you all here. In case some of you are not familiar with who I am, I'm the Deputy Bureau Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. I want to point out Allison Cutler in the corner over there, who's the Chief of the Bureau and who has been incredible in supporting all of the accessibility programs and activities that we've been engaged in. It is extraordinarily exciting to see you here. We couldn't ask for more than a full house, and that's what we've gotten. This is a momentous occasion. This will go down in history and hopefully be in my second book, but we won't go there. Most of you are familiar with the first one. I have a copy over there, by the way. But the reason I brought my book was not to publicize it, but because I wanted to go back and look at some dates, because it shows where we have come from. In 1966, in the 1960s, the early 1960s, there was no such thing as communication to access for people who were deaf and hard of hearing. There were no TTYs. There were these giant surplus type things from AP and UPI and other news services that were performing other functions, and then three deaf individuals took those and created a coupler with the telephone system that enabled communication in text between users. It took a really, really long time for these phones or these devices to catch on because they were huge. They were hundreds of pounds. They were slow. You had to press the keys, and the keys stuck, and you had to press shift. Making phone calls at that time, for those of you who are old enough to remember, cost money for extended phone calls, long-distance calls, so that because it took so long to type, a phone call could cost $15, $25 for a person that used one of these devices. They were not very comparable at all to voice telephones. So very few people were interested in buying them, and in 1966, only 18 TTYs were in existence. Little by little, people decided that they wanted these for emergency purposes, and so that was one of the impetuses for people getting them. And by the year 1972, there were more like 2,500 in existence. However, even then, there was a problem. First of all, they were very expensive. They were hundreds of dollars. And also, if you wanted to communicate with somebody else that didn't have a TTY, you couldn't. So the concept of relay services grew up. And they started with a very small relay service in Missouri between around 20 or 25 families. And these families communicated. They paid $2 a month. It was basically a call answering service, and they communicated with each other. Eventually, it closed because there was so much demand they couldn't actually handle the demand, and also because the TTYs were so noisy, and since it was connected with a call answering service, the call answering service said, get out. So that didn't really work well. But in the early 90s, the early 80s rather, a lot of different communities started building their own relay services systems. I noticed that Chris Sukup is here originally from South Dakota. CSD was one of the first. Communication Service for the Deaf was one of the first of these entities. Connecticut Commission for the Deaf also had a relay service. And little by little, they were springing up across the country, but they had a lot of limitations. They weren't supported by state or federal funds, or even if they were, they limited the number of calls that could be made. They limited the types of calls that could be made. One state prohibited chatty calls or personal calls. They limited the amount of time you could talk. Some states imposed limits of 10 or 20 minutes. But the wonderful thing about them was that they were groundbreaking, because for the first time, people who were deaf and used text could communicate with people who didn't have text and had voices. So what happened in the 1980s is that there was a lot of interest in accessing relay services, but because these services were not accessible to everybody in a full way, there was a movement for a piece of federal legislation, and the Americans with Disabilities Act was born, requiring nationwide relay services. And you're all familiar with the ADA. What it did was it bridged people who used TTYs with people who didn't use TTYs. In the year 2000, so actually let me just jump ahead back a little bit. That statute then went to the commission, and the commission adopted rules implementing it, setting forth minimum functionalities, guarantees of privacy, guarantees that you can make any types of calls guarantees that there not be limits on the number and length of calls, etc. And then over time, the Commission looked at its rules and looked at its guidelines, and it said, you know what, we have to update these for new technologies, and we have to make sure that we are keeping up with evolving technologies. So in the year 2000, the Commission adopted rules requiring video relay services because it became apparent that there could be a way to communicate via video, and it was a lot faster and a lot more accurate, and it made a lot more sense for people to be able to sign rather than to type. So those services, again, were revolutionary and truly changed the lives of so many people because there was this new way of communicating that was a lot easier than using text. However, time passed, and as time passed, more technologies evolved, and direct communication started becoming more in vogue, as you all know. FaceTime, Skype, and direct communication via video relay services became more and more popular. In fact, the vast majority of calls made over the video relay service providers' networks are direct calls. And so again, we started looking, and I want to give a lot of credit to Greg Leibach, and I don't know if he's here, but Greg here at the Commission started thinking about how much better it would be than video relay service to have actually direct communication via video. Now, this is not to say that video relay services won't continue to be needed. Of course they will. But in call centers, where you have people calling in to a center and wanting information, having a person in the call center answer the call in the language to which you're most accustomed, American Sign Language, started to make a lot of sense. And so Greg pushed here for about 2 years, and we eventually instituted this feature, and it has been wildly successful, and I think you're going to hear more about it a little bit later. But its success prompted a greater project to build out the capability for video communication across government agencies, across businesses. What's interesting to me, and this is why I find it so groundbreaking that this event is taking place, is that it's a curve. I mean, if you look at where we started, no communication between deaf people and deaf people, or deaf people and hard of hearing people and other deaf people and hard of hearing people, to relay services to TTYs, to the creation of TTYs that bridge that gap. And then the next gap was bridging the gap between people with disabilities and people who were hearing or didn't have disabilities, and we bridged that gap through TRS. We closed that gap a little bit more with video relay by making that communication even easier. And now we've come full circle to the beginning, which was TTY to TTY, and now we're at video to video, which is fascinating if you think about it, and that's where we need to be, because the more we have a culture of direct communication, the more access moves from functional equivalence to full and equal. So that's my opening. Is the chairman here yet? Okay, I don't have my glasses on, so somebody is going to have to tell me when he arrives. But that's basically that lays the groundwork for what we need to do today. And what we're going to be doing today is showing you a demonstration of an open source technology that will enable direct video communication from call centers. And we also have various exhibitors who have taken it upon themselves to explore commercial means of providing this capability. The chairman is going to talk to you shortly, and I think that for now you can talk amongst yourselves. And he's here. Okay, good. I can introduce him. Perfect timing. So now I can introduce, perfect timing, I can introduce Chairman Wheeler, who has been absolutely extraordinary to work for. It's been a privilege of everybody that has worked on any accessibility issue to work under this chairman. I think that you're all familiar with the extraordinary accomplishments that he has been achieved, and now he's going to share with you some thoughts about direct video communication. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. I love working for Karen. The job that she and the whole team in the Consumer Bureau and what we call CGB have done to continually bring access issues to the forefront is something we all can be proud of and grateful for. So thank you, Karen. This is the kind of event that I love. We spend a lot of time around this agency in abstract discussions about how communications can change lives. Well, today, there's no abstraction. There's no hypotheticals. That we're going to be talking about real solutions with real impacts. The other thing I like about today is that when I came in, I tried to talk about how do we explain expectations in a digital environment. And so we came up with the concept of the network compact. The relationship that has always governed how those who build and operate networks and those who use networks relate. And the first component, there are 5 components of the network compact. The first component, kind of like the First Amendment. The reason it's there is it's the most important. The first component is access. You've got to have access to the network. And that means access for everyone. So let's talk about access. It's the key to living independently. It's the key to getting educated. It's the key to communicating with friends and relatives and reaching emergency services. It's a key to finding work and enjoying the rewards that come from work and a paycheck. Participating in society begins with the ability to connect. And technology is opening access doors. And that's what today is all about. The fact that the world is going IP, going Internet Protocol, going digital, means that direct video calling can now be a reality. You know, in the 20th century, access meant access to someone who had access. You would call a relay service, you would use ASL and the CSR, and that individual would then talk to the CSR wherever you were going to be communicating. 21st century and IP allows us to cut out the middleman. Now, let me be really clear. The folks who are relay operators, we've got nothing but the greatest of respect for them and the job that they do. But there's a difference when you can talk to somebody directly. There's a difference in your ability to communicate. There's a difference in the things you're comfortable saying. I mean, how would you feel if your financial information or your health information or any other personal information had to go through somebody else before it got to its intended recipient? And at the recipient's end, direct communication means that productivity is improved, because there's dialogue rather than interpretation. So direct video calling, DVC, is a simple concept. Hook up to the internet, communicate by video. It's that simple. It's what the IP world allows us to do. And these kinds of connections from individuals who have communications challenges are not a rarity. You know, since we pay for it here, we can track the minutes of use. 3 million minutes a year to the Social Security Administration. 3 million minutes a year using assisted services. They are good services, but they may not be optimal services in a world of internet protocol. Because again, if you can communicate directly, you can reduce misunderstandings. You can reduce call times. You can reduce callbacks. And the companies and government agencies who say, I want to communicate with my constituents or my customers directly, I want to reach people where they are, they can enjoy goodwill and loyalty that will forever follow that kind of a decision. They can demonstrate their commitment to the ADA. And oh yes, and let's never underestimate the importance of this. They can create good job opportunities for their new employees who are using direct video communications to communicate. They can create opportunities for ASL users to have good, high-paying, significant jobs. Now, what's really cool is that for 2 years, this agency has been proving that what I just said is true. It's not hyperbole, it's a fact. 2 years ago, we became the first federal agency with direct video communications. I watched Robert McConnell in action. I learned from Robert. And let me just share with you some facts that came out of the system that Robert was the first to operate. Average call length dropped 42%. Of course it would. People are communicating directly. But here's the one that's really important. the number of deaf callers to the Federal Communications Commission increased 533%. A 500% increase in people saying, I can talk to my government because my government knows how to talk to me. Those are statistics that powerfully prove the value of direct video conferencing. And following our lead, our friends at the SBA stepped right up. The administrator of the SBA, Maria Contreras-Sweet, came over here, saw this, and said, we want to do that at the SBA, and bam, they stepped up. The Census Bureau has stepped up. The EEOC has stepped up. And other federal agencies are coming on board. So, maybe I sound like a commercial. Well, here's the real commercial. In the room today are multiple DVC solutions. And one of those solutions is a solution created by the FCC. Our own open source platform that is available to anyone who wants to have DVC capabilities to offer to their customers or their constituents. We call it ACE, Accessible Communications for Everyone. And what I now want to do is to introduce Robert McConnell to you. As I said, Robert showed me the power of DVC, and now we're going to ask Robert if he can do the same and demonstrate the power of ACE and the transformational impact that this can have. And let me just close with one thing, two things that I have said all along. At one of my first commission meetings dealing with an accessibility issue, I said, this is only the beginning. And I believe that. This is a continuation of that promise. Because the other thing that I have said constantly throughout this whole process is that we live in magical times. That this IP revolution that we're all living through, and that this agency has the unique position and unique privilege of being the focal point for, this IP revolution has given us the tools to attack challenges that have existed for as long as mankind has existed. And if we don't step up and seize on that opportunity, shame on us. So DVC is one of those step up and seize upon what technology can do, opportunities. And so let me get out of the way, quit pontificating, and ask Robert to come up so that he can show you exactly what we're talking about here. But thank you all for coming today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And now I would like to ask our team to head on up to your places for our demo, and we will get started with showing you Ace Direct. As Karen mentioned, we've seen the proliferation of video relay service. Many more deaf people are relying on video to conduct their everyday business, to communicate with family and friends. And while video relay service is certainly a significant aspect of our lives that we use to conduct our business, to contact agencies we're getting services from, we have access to the numbers here. And we see that video is more and more being used by people to contact their friends and family, just like hearing people are starting to use video and have historically used the phone. With this, we have realized that direct video for personal communications, etc., is already the norm. With a video relay service to access businesses and agencies, we're trying to think about how to improve that experience, and it really is a question of taking it from your personal life where you're already using direct calling, communicating with people directly over video, and putting together a solution to allow for deaf people to, instead of just calling family and friends, to call businesses and agencies directly, which is the entire reason that we set up this program that we're showing you today. As the chairman mentioned, the numbers speak for themselves. And I know that you're all curious to see this in action, and it's my pleasure to kick this off. I have April here on my right, who is a fellow FCC employee here at the Commission. And if April is a consumer experiencing an issue with her broadband internet connection, which I can tell you, of course, in an IP world is a very, very difficult proposition. Without a broadband IP connection, there's not much I could do. Very significant issue. How is she going to reach out to businesses or agencies to try to get a resolution to that problem? With that as our premise, April is going to start her direct video call. What she is using to initiate this call is thanks to video relay service, which has proliferated this consumer premises equipment. A lot of these video phones are already in place in consumers' homes and offices, so it's the equipment is already there. The infrastructure is already in place. This is not something that consumers are going to have to go out and buy. It's not something they're going to have to download. We're using the stuff that they already have in their homes and offices. She is simply going to dial a 10-digit phone number. And using that phone number, she is going to connect to the gentleman on my left, who is Shaved Kane. He is also an FCC employee and a friend of mine here. He had actually took over the role at the FCC, taking the ASL calls day in and day out from consumers across the United States who are experiencing these problems with the telecom network. And Shaved is an expert at dealing with and assessing these various issues as consumers are calling them in to determine the root cause of their problem. He knows the right questions to ask to make sure that he's got the issue 100% correct. He may be able to give advice and information on the spot, or there's a situation where there's an unresolvable conflict. He's going to help you file your complaint with the FCC and then mediate those complaints at the FCC with those companies to make sure that you get the optimal outcome as a consumer. So, April, if you would be so kind, go ahead and dial Shaved's number. Now, if you imagine, we've got April's scenario here, but let's imagine that Shaved is just getting into the office, he's just grabbed his cup of coffee, and he's logging into the system, and he wants to be able to sign in to get these calls. Now that he is at work, April is in the process of working through our interactive video response system, which is akin to what folks are used to when they call a business or office via voice. Press 1 for billing, press 2 for payments, etc., whatever those various options are. The IVR, video-based system, is something that we've implemented to be parallel to the type of system that you usually see in a voice call. You see, they've already been able to make their two-way video connection and are already interacting as part of this call. At the FCC, we saw the system that we have now, which is direct video and a simple one-way connection. There was no integration with the existing databases. There was no integration with our enterprise business systems when we initially implemented direct video communication. So all of those aspects need to be handled manually. We had to type notes on the computer. After calls were over, they need to be carried over to our system and put back into that system, which is not what we wanted to do. What we wanted to do is have something that was fully integrated, and rather than being functionally equivalent, truly be equal to the advanced calling systems and PBX systems that exist out among all of these different call centers. Why couldn't we have something akin to that for direct video callers? Now, what we see over here on the dashboard are our customer details that have automatically been pulled up from the system. April has reached out to us before, and so her information is already listed in our database, and it pre-populates. It's all right there. It's not something that we're depending on the caller to manually provide to us. It's a lot of effort. We want to make sure that this is as seamless as possible, that Chevette is able to be as efficient as he can in his role as a customer service representative. One of the big functions and features that exists in traditional call center systems is the use of agent scripts in order to respond to callers, so that there is a standardized response to some common issues. And if you speak with Jane one day and the next day you speak to John, you have the same question, you're likely to end up getting the same answer, the similar experience. Your experience is predictable and consistent. That is two of the real hallmarks of the call center business, both from the caller's side and the call center agent side. Now, this call was again being made using the video phone technology that, as I said, is already available. Most deaf people already have those in their homes. But what happens if someone is away? They don't have access to their video phone equipment where they are. So we decided, rather than having just one door into the system, we wanted to have a second front door to get into this direct video calling system. And so we established a web interface using modern WebRTC standards. Now, I have Linda over here on my right, Linda Jackson, who is a child of deaf adults. She grew up with deaf people in her family. She firsthand saw the frustration and experiences that they had, and sees the incredible benefit of these types of services. So let's say Linda, who watches TV with captioning daily because she sees the value of captioning from her upbringing with her family. Even if you've got your TV on mute, you've got those captions on so you can access television programming. And if Linda saw a program where the captioning was not matching what was being said on the screen, Linda might be interested in contacting the FCC and reaching someone over a voice call and asking them, whoever they were speaking with at that voice call center, questions about the details and ins and outs of captioning policy. They may find themselves with a representative who doesn't know those things incredibly well. However, Chevette, if she's reaching out to him in the direct video calling center, he automatically is going to understand those issues because those are things that he is facing on the daily basis, and he has a really intimate knowledge of those different policies and relevant legislation. So Linda is filling out a complaint form online. We constructed this system such that we have an FCC complaint form, which is a standard complaint form. And when you click to submit that complaint, it can prompt you to thank you, of course, first. Thank you for contacting the complaint center. Here's your complaint number. And so you're all set to go. But if you have an accessibility complaint, you may want to reach out over direct video to speak with an ASL customer service representative. And in that case, Linda has now clicked that button and has directly connected to Shaved in the ASL call center. Now again, you can see Linda's complaint information, which she entered online. Shaved, if you would switch to the ticket information for me, please. Her complaint that she entered online has automatically been populated into Shaved's customer service representative portal. All of that information has been preserved and passed through. That's an example of the enterprise service bus that we integrated as a real important aspect of our platform in order to be able to implement this in full-scale call centers. The enterprise service bus ensures that we can work with essentially any database anywhere. At the FCC, we happen to use a system called Zendesk for our complaints, for tracking and processing complaints. Some other agencies and businesses have various systems that they've developed, implemented, whether they be turnkey or custom development, legacy solutions. Regardless of what that system is, we can push and pull information into those systems in whatever form you are already using. So, Linda and Shaved are currently on a call and still processing this call. Now, Saeed, if you would call in. On my right here is the management dashboard. Of course, any call center needs to have robust tools, not just for their call agents, but also for their call management in order to be able to monitor the overall health of their operation, the efficiency of the call center. And that was something that we wanted to be sure that we were providing in this system as well. It's a critical part of any call center environment. So we have built such functionality into Ace Direct. Saeed has just initiated a call into the Ace Direct system, while Shaved is already on with Linda, so Saeed has been automatically routed into our queue, and he is on hold for his video call. He does not get a message saying, the person you're trying to reach is not available, please leave a message and you'll be called back, which is essentially a failed call. Instead, he has an equivalent experience to someone in a voice call center who's going to be on hold. This is not something that we have had access to in video calling. And now we do. This is a real significant improvement in the customer experience. And now, Saeed, if you would go ahead and disconnect the call. He's been waiting for a little while here, and he may think that it's better for him to give a call back at another time. Of course, Shaved is still on his other call. We note that all the way on the right-hand side of the screen, we have a red box here with the number 5. This is an important metric. We have a number starting on the left-hand side, calls waiting, which originally was at 1 while Saeed was in the queue. We have a total number of calls handled in green. Our average hold time, 0.02 seconds. Or excuse me, 0.02 minutes. So good job, Shaved. This is a very short hold time. And then the abandoned call number. For anyone who is familiar with call center operations, you know that abandoned calls are a really significant metric for you to be able to use to monitor the health of the system, because the more customers have to wait, the longer they have to wait, the more abandoned calls you're going to start to see. And as that number of abandoned calls climbs, if you've got 10 or 20 abandoned calls in the course of an hour, that is an indicator that there is some trouble brewing. It may be best to get some more people to come into work and sign into the system. Now, Linda and Shaved, one other important thing that I want to add here, Linda and Shaved are still on their direct video call. And video calling, of course, integrates audio as well, but we've seen some shifts and certainly foresee more shifts in the landscape here at the Commission, which is real-time text. Real-time text, or RTT, as we call it. Karen and the chairman have already talked about TTY and the history of the huge monster TTY, the 500-pound gorilla in your garage. Linda has a funny story about the TTYs at her home as a hearing child of deaf parents. Oftentimes, her parents would get calls during the late evening hours from friends because that's the time when you had a cheaper long-distance rate. But what they didn't realize at the time when people were calling was that the TTY was in Linda's room. So the ring of the TTY woke her overnight. So like 2 o'clock in the morning, and she was responding to these TTY calls saying, I'll go get my parents for you at 2 in the morning. It's just a story that really tickled me. And now, of course, we've got mobile phones, we've got lighting alerts, we've got text alerts. There's a whole host of different solutions. But if we look back to the TTY, which was an analog system depending upon the old phone network, it is starting to be phased out if it isn't phased out already. People who used that in the past still have a need for some kind of text method for communication. We've built that into Ace Direct as well. Now, Linda and Shaved are still on their direct video call. I'm going to show you Linda's end of this call here. And you see here on the right-hand side that she has access to real-time text, which is character-by-character transmission of text chat. It's akin to a face-to-face voice or video conversation where you can certainly interrupt, you can speak over, you can correct yourself, go back and forth, rather than waiting to send a message, artificially taking turns in such a way, or potentially sending a message out of order because you didn't realize that your other party was sending something. It's real-time text we foresee being an important part of IP-enabled communication in the future. We wanted to be sure that we incorporated that type of functionality here. So real-time text is here. It is working in Ace Direct today. With all of that said, we thought about this system having seen a lot of excuses for why something like direct video calling wasn't being implemented. The first was, the technology isn't ready. The second was that it was expensive. And the third, that it was difficult to implement. With the demonstration of this system, the technology that we've presented here, in addition to that's being presented by our vendors that are here today, I'm here to tell you that the first concern, this technology is ready today. Number 2, it is not expensive. And number 3, it is easy to implement. And that is essentially the gist of what we wanted to communicate to you today. And I just want to emphasize a point from Chairman Tom Wheeler as well, that this is only the beginning. With that, some of you may have some questions or comments, want some more information. We're going to have a period of Q&A here for you. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to pose them to us. We also have the opportunity for you to send these questions over email to livequestions@fcc.gov. And so the floor is now open. I am here to answer questions. We also have several of our other technical experts who are here and happy to answer any questions that you have, work with you to help get answers to questions that you may have. So with that, shoot away.
Questions, stand up. Question? Here. Come on, camera. Do you have a question? No. Okay.
All right. A quiet crowd, it looks like. Question? Dr. Christian Vogler from Gallaudet University.
Where's the best place for me to stand?
If you just want to sit, I think that'll be fine.
My name is Christian Vogler. I'm manager of technical access program at Gallaudet. I have 2 related questions. Can you explain a little bit more about how an agency or a company would establish such a system that you're talking about and how it might work? And then the related question is, have you been able to justify or prove the interoperability of the system across all of the VRS providers' video phones?
Sure. So the second question, can I confirm this is interoperable with all VRS platforms? So they're both good questions. The first one, at the FCC, we're working on a rulemaking process where we're considering a waiver of our rules right now, to which currently allow only for VRS providers to provide 10-digit phone numbers to eligible individuals. We still have an open rulemaking on that issue, but I can tell you that we're reviewing the assignment of video phone numbers in our TRS database to customer service agencies in order to offer such a service. That is something that we're working on upstairs at the Commission. To your second question about interoperability, which is an engineering issue, I think that I would like to see if some of our contractors from MITRE would like to chime in to answer that question.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Vincent DeGioia with MITRE. So to answer the question about interoperability, we participated in the most recent interop, and we have mixed results with the providers. We have good results in the sense that we were able to test across all platforms. What we're trying to prove out with our results, and this is currently with the FCC and in our report, is we'll be able to share the extent of the success and also the issues that we're working with the providers that could be on their platform or on our platform.
And I'd like to add to that answer. VRS interoperability is an entirely separate but very important issue to us here at the FCC, and we do have another rulemaking item that we are reviewing right now as well that has to do specifically with interoperability to ensure that all providers are able to communicate with each other in predictable ways and appropriate ways to ensure that calling from different VRS technologies, regardless of how advanced they are, will all have some basic level of expectation and a consistent floor, if you will, for high-quality video connections. That is a really important issue to us. And again, it's very much forthcoming. Any other questions?
Hello. Do you have here at the FCC specific and unique 800 numbers then that customers use for this service?
Yes, in fact, we do. We have registered a toll-free number, which is 844-432-2275, and I can tell you a little bit of what's behind that. 844-4FCC-ASL, so American Sign Language ASL. It's the mnemonic that I'm fairly proud of. But yes, we do have a toll-free number that's been registered in our TRS system and to the video phone system here. Other companies have been doing that same thing and are certainly able to do that.
Is your question around, do you have to have a separate number? Okay. So the answer to that is no. You can do it any number of ways. You can have a separate number like we do it now, or you can have one number that dials in to, and the system is smart enough to know that it's a voice number or a video number and route it accordingly. So it can be done either way.
Great, thank you. And again, this has to do with our TRS numbering database, doing a lookup as to whether the person who is calling into your system is also in that database. In the event that they are also in that database, then they can be routed to the video end of the call center. And if they are not, then they are a voice call. They can be routed to the voice end of that service for their call to be facilitated.
Follow-up question on the 800 number. If you are going to consider using one number, would the initial path for that phone number have to route through your database and then out to the actual company being called? How does the flow work there? If you could explain that a little bit more.
Sure. This is very similar to the North American numbering plan that the FCC manages, another database for voice calling that we manage here. Once you dial a number, there is a check of the SIP the SIP enum database, and to get the routing information for that phone number, whether it's an IP address or a SIP address, in order for it to get to your company directly. And I'd be happy to talk in more detail with you. It's certainly a very technical question, but I hope that generally answers it for you. Thank you. We've got a question that came in online. This is a question that said, you stated that it was easy to deploy. What is the average implementation timeline with a company's call center technology? It's an excellent question, and it depends on how complicated that call center setup is. At the Federal Communications Commission, we have 1 or 2 people at most who are answering these video calls, but we are working with some groups who anticipate having 40 or 50 seat call centers, which certainly will take a significant increase in effort. Again, we have already done most of the legwork here with developing this platform over the course of the last 18 months, I believe. In fact, this is older than my son. That's kind of how I know that. But the technical details aside, if we're talking about customization into your system and your environment, because a lot of that technical infrastructure work has already been done. This is based on open source solutions. We also have vendors here who may offer some turnkey solutions that are available. So you've got options. If you want to use the platform that the FCC has developed and hire your own engineers to implement it in-house, you can certainly have an outside vendor implement it for you. But those options are all available to you. How you do it is not important to us. Whether you use our open source platform that we've developed or you use one of these vendors' platforms that they have developed, we honestly don't care. Rather, we think it's important that you do direct video calling. Any other questions?
Thank you. Earl Comstock with VTC Secure. And so, Robert, I just want to follow up on that. Just to be clear, so one is the FCC currently using the platform that you just described? And then a follow-up to that is, if somebody took this and implemented it, who would they contact for technical support? In other words, who's maintaining and updating the code that goes into the open source platform? Or would that be something they'd be responsible for doing?
Great question. The code for the platform has been released as of today. So today the clock has started for implementing at the FCC and our call center environment. As to your question about support, again, it depends on how one wants to do it. Some companies have very sensitive requirements for security and data, the particular information that their system touches, and want to be sure that they own the system and can tailor it. So they may want to look at an in-house product that they can tailor and build on top of our code. They may want to contract that out to an outside entity and have an outside entity maintain the platform and implement the platform, and simply pay a flat fee for that. You've got service level agreements, SLAs, that exist that are very, very wide breadth in terms of the way that could look for a business trying to implement it.
Is in terms of the FCC's development efforts, are they going to continue that? So you'll be issuing patches, updates, et cetera, to the code, or is that something that now the FCC is turning over to the open source community and any further development will occur there? That's what I'm trying to get clarified. How will that process work?
Okay. We have been taking it one step at a time. We are moving forward with implementation here and looking at continued support and exploring the options for how we can do that. But there will be some support one way or another.
Hi. I have an operational question about how this would work in a call center. if, for instance, there were no available direct video American Sign Language operators available, is the software smart enough to reroute something out and give an option to either go through a relay service or give a message about contacting back or leaving a message so that they could be contacted?
Yes, we have been using Asterisk for the dial plan for the call center. And Asterisk has a whole plethora of options for how you can customize the call flow to meet your needs. Now, for transfers to the relay system, there is a potential function for that. We could consider a function for, if you're closed for the holidays, for example, you need a message for that. Certainly that's possible. With the platform here, it's fairly bespoke, so you can customize it for what you need at every day in your implementations. At the FCC, we're going to turn on the widgets that we need and turn off the widgets that we don't. But wherever you're implementing it, you can use the Asterisk server to customize that implementation and call flow to match your needs. Christian?
I have a follow-up question that is related to what just got asked about the system that the FCC is using. So it seems like there are some aspects of it that would work well, and then there are some VPs, video phones, that might have interoperability issues. Who is going to be responsible? The provider, the platform provider? I know it's a lot of work to solve some of those issues, and I'm just wondering if they're using this system and they're someone's using a different system, how will we resolve any of those issues? Who will tell the customer that, in fact, this call's not going to go through for one or the other reasons?
Okay, Christian's question again is about interoperability. And now some VRS providers are interoperable. There are others with which we're experiencing some issues. Now, interoperability in general is required in our TRS rules. And as was mentioned earlier, we are looking at an interoperability order, which will require SIP standards to ensure that video phones can communicate with one another in a consistent manner, regardless of the platform or provider. And that is something that is going to be woven into our platform as well. So we are going to eat what we cook in that way.
That sounds like a long-term solution. What are you doing in the short term?
In the interim, we are going to do what works best because, of course, we are bound to follow our own rules as they come to interoperability. And we are working with VRS providers. If consumers have problems with a company or a business, we are here to ensure that those problems are being solved for both this situation and other situations in the future. So we're thinking about the long run as well. Great, thank you. Excellent. And if there are no further questions at the moment, then I'm going to turn things over to David Schmidt, also known as Raster, here at the Commission, our TRS Fund Program Manager and our contract representative for our contract with MITRE at the FCC. Raster, take it.
So thanks, Robert. So I'm supposed to be Anita Day, and if I was, I would be much more attractive and nicer. But Anita had a personal issue that took her away today, so you get me. Sorry. I have a script. I'm not good at following those, so don't expect much. I do want to take a quick moment to say you have a packet. And if you don't have a packet, there's a bunch of information on that table. You have this handout here that kind of explains what exactly the technologies are that we put into the platform and what's available to you. You have this little handout here that tells you what website to go to actually download the code, and the code went live an hour ago. It might be 2 hours at this point. If there are any issues with that, there's a contact info for you to get hold of us and let us know. And so those are the two key things I wanted to show you out of that document. What you have today is an open source platform that the FCC has given away. It is on a GitHub repository. It is released under a GPL2 license. What that essentially means is you're free to take it. You're free to use it. If, however, you don't want to use that and you want to go with some other solution, be it a commercial solution with your current provider for your call center solution that you have, or you want to do a custom solution, or you want to go with any of the providers that are here in the room that I'm about to talk about, or if you want to go with somebody else. Again, I just want to highlight the fact that we're agnostic. We don't care. We don't care if you use our platform or their platform or some other platform that we don't know about. We just want you to take the calls from the deaf consumers directly because we think the technology is available and ready and mature today, and we're doing everything we can do to make that easy for you. And so find your way to yes. Okay? That's the key here. Find your way to yes, and do it today. All right, so I'm pleased to kick off the exhibition portion of our event. We have several entities over here, largely to my right, and so I'll briefly introduce you to them. I have a quick caveat. The words that I'm going to say for each provider were provided to me by those individuals, so they do not reflect my opinion nor the opinion of the FCC. I'm not in any way saying I agree with what they're telling me to say, nor do I in any way endorse their products or anything else. They're the people that responded and wanted to be here to talk to you today, so please go over and talk to them and find out whatever you need to find out from them. We encourage you to do so. But we are in no way endorsing any of these entities or really ourselves. So with that, I am going in alphabetical order. Sorensen Communications develops video technology for the deaf and provides video relay services. It has created a cloud-based solution which provides an American Sign Language video-based interactive voice response and video-capable queue for deaf agents. This solution is currently in use at several deaf institutions. This call center solution requires no custom development or on-premises infrastructure deployment. T-Meeting Global is a Swedish developer of open source standards, compliant communication solutions for communications disabled persons. Its DVC solution uses a cloud-based platform and an intuitive graphical user interface. I'm sorry if I'm going too fast. I didn't think about that. I apologize. Key features include multi-party, real-time text in a conference call setting with audio, encryption, a recording option for all types of calls, and USB and Bluetooth connection options. VTC Secure is an accessibility technology company. VTC Secure's Solves call center product can stand alone or integrate direct video calling with a company's existing customer call center. Solves adds features like real-time text, speech-to-text translation, chat, and file sharing to multi-party video calling in a HIPAA-compliant, secure, standards-based software as a service product that is instantly deployable and scales to any size. Okay, so those are the companies. In addition to those companies, we have representatives from Communication Service for the Deaf in the room, and they would be happy to tell you about their experiences staffing call centers with deaf individuals to provide direct video communications. And we also have our friends from the Small Business Administration who are an early adopter of direct video communications. And they're here to share their experiences and successes with you. SBA's video phone service allows deaf and hard of hearing individuals to communicate with SBA employees directly in American Sign Language rather than through typed text or other third-party intermediary services. Now deaf and hard of hearing individuals have a better option to communicate with the SBA to get service or support for their businesses. The website is www.sba.gov/ASL. Since all of you will be getting up to walk around in a moment, this is the point where we'll end our live stream. I want to say a quick thank you to our MITRE teammates who have helped put on this event today. and to all of you for taking the time on a Friday afternoon to come and witness what we've done, and we thank you for your time. So with that, we'll end the formal portion of our conversation. I believe MITRE has provided the sugary and caffeinated refreshments in the back, and my understanding is there's a couple of healthier options over there as well if you're so inclined. So please take the time to see what our exhibitors have to offer. We at the FCC are available to answer any questions that you may have as well on our product. I do want to say one thing about the demo that you saw today. It's not on a laptop here in the room. It's run on an Amazon Web Services instance, and so it is live for the extent that it can be. It wasn't some fake thing that you saw just work in this room. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for calling customer service. How can I help you today?
I wish I could get through to someone who uses my language.
Cut! Don't you know about direct video calling? You can now communicate directly with customers who use American Sign Language via a video call. Direct video calling gives businesses direct access to millions of deaf and hard of hearing consumers who use American Sign Language to communicate. And it provides jobs for people with disabilities. When a deaf person can call directly, it ensures accessible communication for everyone.
Thank you for calling customer services. How can I help you today?
Finally, you can totally understand me, and it's easy to communicate.
Now that's what direct video calling looks like. Isn't it wonderful when you can build a relationship directly with your customers, face to face? Direct video calling. Start a direct video calling program with ease at your call center with Ace Direct.